If you're over 60 and taking vitamin B12 every day, pause for a moment, because what you're about to hear could completely change the way you see this habit. According to some estimates, more than 40% of older adults are taking B12 along with at least one prescription medication every day. And what's concerning is, a large portion of them may be unknowingly triggering a silent reaction in the body that increases the risk of stroke and cardiovascular damage without any warning signs, no pain, no dizziness, nothing that feels alarming. You wake up, take your B12 like a healthy routine, and believe you're protecting your body. But what very few people are clearly told is this: just because you're supplementing doesn't mean your body is actually using it the right way. Sometimes the combination of a familiar vitamin and a very common medication can set off a chain reaction you can't see, until it becomes a real problem. In the next few minutes, I'll explain what's actually happening inside your body, why even the most health-conscious people fall into this trap, and more importantly, what you can start doing today to avoid a risk most people never even know exists. There's something I've noticed after many years of working with older adults. The people who take the best care of their health are often the ones who make the hardest to detect mistakes. They read nutrition labels. They take their supplements consistently. They don't miss a single vitamin in the morning, and because of that, they believe they're doing everything right. But the issue isn't whether you're taking B12 or not. The real question is your body actually using it the right way? After 60, your body doesn't process nutrients the way it used to. Your digestive system changes, absorption slows down, and more importantly, the way different substances interact inside your body becomes much more complex. What many people don't realize is this: your B12 levels might look good on a blood test, but at the cellular level, your body can still be functionally deficient. And when that happens, what you think is helping you stay healthy can sometimes quietly start working in the opposite direction. Let me tell you about Linda, 68 years old. She's the kind of patient any doctor would want. She eats well, walks every morning, doesn't smoke, and most importantly, she never misses her daily vitamin B12. Her mornings follow a steady routine: a glass of warm water, a few supplements, with B12 always at the top of the list. She truly believed she was doing everything necessary to keep her body healthy as she aged. But over the past few months, she started noticing a different kind of fatigue. Not sleepiness, not exhaustion, just a persistent feeling of low energy that rest didn't seem to fix. She told herself, it's probably just age. Her daughter didn't think so. She suggested taking a closer look, going beyond the usual routine tests, and what they found surprised both of them. Linda's B12 levels were not low at all. In fact, they were quite good, but another number, something she had never even heard of before, was unusually high. That number was homocysteine. What this meant was, even though she had been consistently taking B12 every day, her body wasn't using it the way she thought. And while she believed she was protecting her health, a different silent process was unfolding underneath. This isn't a rare story. And if any part of Linda's situation feels familiar to you, then what comes next is something you need to understand clearly. To understand what's really happening, imagine your body as a system with a very precise filtering mechanism. B12 isn't something you can just put in and be done with it. It needs to be properly absorbed, transported to the right place, and activated in the right form to actually be useful. When this process breaks down, even at a single step, B12 can no longer do its job effectively. And that's when another substance begins to build up: homocysteine. You can think of homocysteine like tiny metal particles floating through your bloodstream. Under normal conditions, your body clears them out smoothly with the help of B12 and other related vitamins. But when that system is disrupted, those particles don't get removed. Instead, they start rubbing continuously against the inner walls of your blood vessels. No pain, no obvious sensation, but over time that constant friction makes your blood vessels less flexible, more prone to inflammation, and more likely to develop plaque buildup. It's like a water pipe that starts off smooth, but gradually gets scratched, collects residue, and becomes rigid. What makes this even more concerning is how quietly it happens. You continue your daily routine, walking, eating, sleeping, just like always. There's no clear signal telling you to stop and think something isn't right. And that's exactly why many people only discover the problem when it has already progressed much further than they realized. Now, we need to talk about a medication that many people take every day without giving it much thought: metformin. If you're managing blood sugar, chances are you're familiar with this name. And to be clear, metformin does its job well. It helps regulate blood sugar and reduces the risk of diabetes-related complications. But there's something that's rarely explained in detail. Over time, metformin can weaken an important mechanism in your stomach, the one responsible for helping deliver B12 from food into your body. You can think of it like a delivery vehicle. When the system is working properly, B12 gets transported to the right place at the right time. But when it's affected over the long term, that vehicle no longer runs reliably. What happens next can be misleading. Your doctor checks your blood work and sees that your B12 levels aren't low. You continue supplementing. Everything appears fine. But in reality, that B12 isn't being used efficiently inside your body. It's like products being delivered to a warehouse, but never actually entering the production line. And it's this disconnect that becomes the real issue. Your body gradually loses the ability to regulate homocysteine effectively, not because you completely lack B12, but because it's not being used the way it should be. What's important to understand is that this process happens very slowly. It can take years. And during all that time, you may believe you're doing everything right, taking your medication, staying consistent with your supplements. That's why metformin itself isn't bad. But when combined with an approach to B12 supplementation that doesn't fit your body's current needs, it can create a situation that goes unnoticed until your body starts showing clearer signs. The second type of medication is even more common and often more overlooked. Acid-reducing drugs, specifically PP, is like omeprazole or pantoprazole. Many people over 60 take them daily to manage reflux, heartburn, or to protect the stomach. At first, they work very well. The discomfort goes away quickly. Eating feels easier. And over time, taking the medication becomes a long-term habit. But there's an important detail. B12 from food is not in a free form. It's tightly bound to protein and needs a sufficiently acidic environment to be released. When stomach acid is reduced over a long period, this release process becomes less effective. In other words, B12 is still present in your meals, but your body isn't actually getting it. Then a familiar cycle begins. B12 levels start to drop, so you're advised to supplement. You begin taking higher doses of B12 to make up for it. On paper, the numbers may improve, but internally, things aren't as stable as they appear. When the digestive environment changes, absorption becomes inconsistent. Some days your body processes it better, some days it doesn't. This inconsistency makes it harder for your body to regulate homocysteine effectively. In addition, after long-term PPIUs, some people experience what's known as a rebound effect, where the stomach increases acid production again when the medication wears off. This makes B12 absorption and metabolism even more unpredictable. The result is that you may be doing everything you can to supplement, but the system behind it isn't functioning the way you expect. And this is where everything starts to come together. Homocysteine. What concerns me isn't just its impact, it's the fact that most people have never even heard of it. In routine lab work, you'll usually see blood sugar, cholesterol, sometimes B12. But homocysteine, it's typically not included unless you specifically ask for it, and yet it's a marker that reveals a great deal about your vascular health. When homocysteine stays elevated over time, 3 important changes begin to happen. First, the inner lining of your blood vessels loses its natural smoothness. It becomes more sensitive and more prone to inflammation. Second, LDL, what we often call bad cholesterol, can more easily stick to those inflamed areas, forming buildup. And third, the most concerning part, those plaques become unstable. They can break off and travel through the bloodstream. That's why some strokes occur without any clear signs of blockage beforehand. The issue isn't just whether there's a blockage. It's whether something has broken loose and started moving. You may still be walking around, going about your day as usual. No pain, no warning. But inside, your vascular environment has already changed in ways you can't feel. And when you put everything we've discussed together, B12 not being used effectively, the influence of medications, and the silent buildup of homocysteine, you start to see a much clearer picture. This isn't something that happens overnight. It's the result of many small factors building up over time, and because it develops so gradually, it's very easy to overlook. There's a mistake I see very often, and at first, it sounds logical. If I'm low, taking more must be better. So when people hear that B12 is important, they start increasing the dose. 1,000, even 2,000 or 5,000 micrograms a day. And they believe this is a way to play it safe. But the body doesn't work that way. You can't think of it like a glass that you simply fill up. It's more like a system with a limited processing capacity. When you go beyond that limit, the excess doesn't automatically become beneficial. In fact, it can start to disrupt the internal balance. Especially when absorption is already affected, as we discussed earlier, taking large amounts of B12 doesn't fix the root problem. It simply increases the amount that isn't being properly processed inside the body. And that's the part that matters. When B12 isn't going through the correct metabolic pathways, your body becomes less efficient at managing homocysteine. Instead of helping to clear it out, it can contribute to overloading the system. The irony is that most people do this with good intentions. They want to prevent problems. They want to take control of their health, but without the right information, they end up moving in the wrong direction. That's why I always emphasize this. In nutrition, more is not always better. The right dose, the right form, and the right timing. Those three factors matter far more than simply increasing the amount. And if you've been taking high doses of B12 for a long time, this may be the moment to pause and take a closer look at how your body is actually responding. To help you see that this issue can absolutely be adjusted, let me tell you about Robert, 72 years old. He was just like many others, taking stomach medication for years, supplementing with B12 regularly, and believing he was managing his health quite well. But then he began noticing small changes, not serious, but enough to make him feel less sharp than before. He got tired more easily, and at times felt like his thinking wasn't as clear. At first, he ignored it, but after a more detailed discussion and some deeper testing, the results showed that his homocysteine was above the safe range. What's important is this. We didn't make any extreme changes. We didn't stop everything. We didn't use complicated interventions. We simply adjusted the core factors. First, we switched to a form of B12 that the body can use more directly. Second, we reduced the dose to a more appropriate level instead of continuing with high doses. Third, we added supportive nutrients to help the metabolic process run more smoothly. And finally, we adjusted the timing of medications and supplements so they wouldn't interfere with each other. Nothing overly complicated. But after about 10 to 12 weeks, things started to change. His homocysteine levels dropped significantly. More importantly, Robert said he felt like he had come back to himself. His energy was more stable, and his thinking felt clearer. What I want you to see here is not a special case. It's something very real. The body still has the ability to adjust and recover, if you guide it back in the right direction. And sometimes the difference isn't about doing more, it's about doing it right. So what can you do starting right now to avoid the situation we've been talking about? I'm going to give you a very clear step-by-step plan. Nothing complicated, but enough to make a real difference. First, take a close look at everything you're using each day. Not just prescription medications, but also vitamins and supplements. Pay special attention if you've been taking diabetes medication or stomach acid medications long term. This is the foundation for understanding what your body is actually dealing with. Second, if possible, talk with your doctor about checking 2 additional markers, homocysteine and active B12. Don't just rely on total B12 levels. What truly matters is how your body is using it. Third, review the type of B12 you're taking. Not all forms are the same. Some require multiple conversion steps before your body can use them, and that may not be ideal after age 60. Fourth, adjust your dosage. If you've been taking high doses for a long time, consider bringing it down to a more appropriate level. As I mentioned earlier, more doesn't always mean better. Fifth, support your body with the right cofactors, especially vitamins that help the metabolic process run more smoothly. This helps your system work in sync instead of focusing on just one nutrient. And finally, pay attention to timing. Even a small change, like separating when you take your medications and your supplements, can make a meaningful difference in how your body absorbs them. You don't have to change everything at once. Just start with a few things done right, and your body will begin to respond over time. There's one thing I want you to remember clearly at this point. If you recognize that you've been doing some of the things we just talked about, it doesn't mean you've been doing anything wrong. You've simply been following the guidance you were given, taking your medications consistently, supplementing regularly, doing your best to take care of your body in the way you know how. And that is something to respect. But the issue is this: a lot of important information is never fully explained. You're told to take B12, but not exactly when, how much, or what might happen when it's combined with certain medications. That's not your fault. After 60, the body is no longer as simple as it once was. Small changes in digestion, absorption, and how different substances interact can lead to very different outcomes. And the most important thing isn't that you need to do more. It's that you need to understand more. Understand so you can adjust correctly. Understand so you're no longer relying entirely on old habits. Understand so you can truly take control of your health instead of just following along. When you have the right information, even small decisions can start moving you in the right direction. By now, you've probably realized something very important. After the age of 60, the issue is no longer whether you're supplementing or not. It's how your body processes what you're taking in. Vitamin B12 isn't the problem. The medications you're taking aren't the problem either. The real issue lies in how they interact within a body that has changed over time. And the good news is this: once you understand it correctly, you can absolutely make adjustments. Your body isn't breaking down. It just needs to be supported in a more appropriate way. I'd like you to try something very simple over the next 14 days. Take some time to review everything you're using daily. Look closely at the type of B12 you're taking, and, if possible, have a conversation with your doctor about checking your homocysteine levels. Just 14 days is enough to start seeing your body from a different perspective, and sometimes small changes like these can lead to meaningful differences over time. If you're taking B12 daily or using diabetes medication or stomach acid medication, leave a comment with the word "check" so I know you've made it this far and that you're starting to pay closer attention to how your body really works. And if you feel like what you just heard is something no one has clearly explained to you before, take a moment to like this video so others can discover it sooner. You can also subscribe and turn on notifications, because sometimes the right piece of information at the right time can help you avoid a much bigger problem down the road.